Hello, this is Ray with Burkey and Cox accounting firm. Today's presentation is on our company slogan, "It's not what you earn, it's what you keep." So we're going to go over a few tips on keeping more of the money that you earn. One of our first tips is opening up a savings account with an online-only bank. Now, with a lot of the brick and mortar banks, interest is not accrued on savings accounts. However, in order to keep themselves relevant, these online-only banks have pretty attractive offers for interest rates. So definitely check some of those out for your savings accounts. Our next tip is investing $25 in stocks per paycheck through investing applications. There's plenty out there. Choose the one that best fits the way you like to invest. I personally like to use Robinhood. It's a lot of fun and it allows you to put some funds in a place where you're not going to touch them. One thing to note is any sort of money that is made through those apps, the capital gains is taxed. So definitely make sure that you're saving up in federal tax withholdings to meet that obligation if you have some pretty aggressive capital gains. We suggest investing 5 to 10% of your gross pay to a retirement account, regardless of the employer match. So typically employer matches are 3% of a employee's contributions to retirement account. We suggest putting in more than that as a way to speed up your progression towards having enough money in there to retire. We also advise to have a portion of your pay directly deposited to your savings account, and it would be even better if it's that online savings account that we mentioned earlier, as any money that hits your checking account, it's a lot easier to spend. Which brings us to our next point, to make it as inconvenient as possible to spend from your savings account. So that means you have to do more steps than just initiate a transfer, like let's say remember the checking account or have to ask your significant other for access to that account, as that extra step makes you think twice before spending the money. We're going to talk about some loans on this slide. Having a healthy amount of debt is a good thing, as it allows you to purchase larger assets that you wouldn't necessarily be able to otherwise. Some of the very good things to accrue debt for are education, a nice automobile, a home, and if you have any medical expenses, as you only get one body, you need to treat it right. It's a good practice to only finance assets with a long life. You don't want your asset to die, to lose its value before your loan is done for that asset. So we advise always looking at an asset and saying, hey, how long do I think this asset's going to last versus how long is the loan's life? And if the asset's life is a lot longer than the loan's life, it might be a good idea to finance that object. Running an amortization schedule in Excel allows a borrower to see exactly how much interest is going to accrue over the life of the loan. Unfortunately, a lot of loan contracts are pretty cumbersome to deal with, and breaking it down in Excel gives you all the data you need in a very comfortable space. So it allows you to actually see the big picture and see how much of your payments are going to go to principal and how much of them are going to go to interest. If it's too much interest, you can always say no to the loan or ask to see if there's anything you can do to lower the interest rate of that loan. I see a lot of issues in this area. One of them was, my brother. He tried to finance a car for 72 months at 30% interest rate. And now he was very young at the time, so he didn't quite grasp how much that was in terms of the amount of interest that he's going to pay over the life of this entire loan. And thankfully he got out of it, but it could have definitely been disastrous for him financially if he got stuck with it. A good problem to have is trying to figure out what loans to pay off first. So, with all loans, paying off the one with the largest annual interest rate is the best option because it allows you to keep more of your money. Now, there are other methods that are very effective. Dave Ramsey suggests using a snowball method when you pay down loans. So in the most basic sense of this concept is you start with the loan balances that are the smallest, And the successful payoff of those loan balances allow you to mentally snowball and tackle larger loan balances in a more efficient manner. Now, something I see that happens a lot in my friends and in the car community as a whole is that once somebody pays off their current car, they think it's time to go buy another car. While this is a tempting offer, utilizing a car to its full potential once the loan is over is the most cost-effective way to get everything out of your automobile. So some of the little things that we do every month add up that we don't even realize. A lot of pay-per-month subscription services add up very fast. $10 subscriptions adds up to $100 a month, and that's $1,200 every single year. Some of the advice that we have in cleaning up those pay-per-month subscription services is listing all of them in Excel. In a 30-day period, every time you log into one of these subscription services, you put a little X next to the one that you used. If you see that some of the subscription services were unused that month, it might be time to cut them out. And you can keep doing this annually or as long as you feel you need to in order to clean up all of the little subscriptions you have. I know that I personally had a Chegg student account that was $35 a month that I had for the very longest time, and finally I canceled it, and it ended up costing me a lot more than it should have. Keeping solid maintenance schedules on automobiles allows you to make it so that you don't have very costly expenses down the road. Continual annual maintenance on an automobile makes it so that you have very small fees for repairing a vehicle instead of very large fees. Every time you go over on an oil change, that's excess wear on the components of your vehicle. That excess wear adds to excess damage to the vehicle. Doing fun things does not have to be a financial burden. There's always a cheaper alternative to doing things. I know my beautiful fiance Hayal and I love to travel and do fun things, but when we travel, we always go on Airbnb and try to find a really good rate. We go out to eat maybe once or twice in the entire trip, and I usually cook the rest of the time. I bring on my Instant Pot that has all these different features for cooking, so typically there isn't a meal I can't make while on the road. A do-it-yourself attitude goes a very long way. So, like oil changes in your car, it's advised that a vehicle has an oil change between 3,000 to 7,000 miles depending on the vehicle. Now, this oil change can cost upwards of $50 to $100 per time if you use services like Jiffy Lube. However, if you do it yourself, it's most likely going to cost around $25. Now, this is a very easy task to complete. There's plenty of resources online to get it done. And then there's also other things, like my fiance Hayal loves this stuff called kombucha. It's basically fermented tea. It costs $10 per bottle of this stuff, and one bottle does not last a long time at all. So what she's done is she started her own kombucha fermenting, and she's very successful at it. She gets a gallon every single 10 days. So it's definitely enough to meet her demand. The kit cost us $45, and so far it's saved us about $100. So definitely having that do-it-yourself attitude is the key to saving a lot more money. Another great little thing that adds up is having an Uber Eats date night. It's a lot of fun going out and delivering food with your significant other. You get to have fun car rides, you get to talk to each other, figure out things you might not have known about the other person. By the time you've racked up $50 to $100, you can go have a wonderful dinner that was basically free. Another great way to save money is playing board games on the weekends. While it's tempting to go out to a movie night or something of that nature, it's a lot easier to play a board game and save that money. Board games are $10 for one large board game with infinite amount of playability. It proves itself useful, and it definitely is valuable. A few more methods of saving. Figuring out what your personal and fixed variable costs are is very important when budgeting. So a fixed cost is something that you physically cannot go without. Now, in business, these costs are the costs that are absolutely necessary in order to keep the doors open, even if I wasn't making a sale. Personally, these are costs that I need to survive. So that could even mean if I'm a mountain biker, I need to mountain bike. That's one of the things that I find the most enjoyment in life. So I could personally think that's one of my fixed costs. Variable costs are costs that go up as we please. So they're not necessarily things we need to survive. They are costs that go. They are costs that are accrued as we want them. So we don't necessarily need these things, and we can start cutting them out as we find necessary. A very nice mental way to make it so that you can see the real value of something that you're trying to buy is calculating purchases by the hours worked instead of the item's cost. So if you look at an item and say, that's $100, I make $10 an hour, my goodness, that is a lot of time that I put into earning that money. I don't want this anymore. An easy way, if you're salaried, to figure out how much per hour something costs you is taking your gross annual salary, dividing it by 2,080, which will roughly give you the amount of time it took you to work for that amount of money. There are so many budgets out there. There's the envelope style of budgeting. There's a lot of Excel spreadsheets out there. Finding a way to budget that suits your lifestyle is a very efficient way of saving more money. You can track past spending with an Excel pivot table as well. Many banks offer .csv file downloads. And what these downloads are transaction data for any given period of time. So you can download that period of time as last year, categorize everything, run that pivot table, and see what you spent during the year. And to be honest with you, once you do it, you're going to be surprised at what you actually spent your money on throughout the year. This has been the It's Not What You Earn, It's What You Keep webinar. I'm your host, Ray Langley. As a plug, I do QuickBooks training, and that's my contact information below. Thank you so much, and hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.